welcome everybody. Last panel of the day, at least for this room. And we have a fantastic group of panelists today, and we're looking at optimizing emergency responses with drone services. We're looking about, again, police operations, medical operations, firefighting. So before we start, my name is Lorenzo Murzilli, founder and CEO of Murzilli Consulting, and I'll ask everybody quickly to introduce yourself, 1 or 2 minutes, just who you are, what you are doing with your company, and then we get going. Please, Adam, you can start.
Sure. Hi. So my name is Adam Klaptach. I'm a co-founder CEO at Rigitech. We're a Swiss-based drone manufacturer. So we build drone systems and software. Mostly that we got a big red VTOL drone you can see over there at the entrance. And mostly we look at package delivery actually over small packages over longer distances. But we are starting to see more applications of even logistics within emergency services. So emergency repair of systems, delivering emergency medical payloads, for example. So that's a little bit how we fit into this panel here.
Thank you. Please.
Mikael Shamim, CEO of Helicus. Medical transport by drone is a bit our mantra since 2016 when we were incorporated. And we have been trying to get all the actors throughout the value chain of unmanned aviation together to get rapid reaction capability, because that's not an obvious thing. And so that we do through coordination of European funded projects since the beginning. So we have already had 3 waves of those. We try to keep everyone together. We are also then ourselves developing 2 types of technologies, automation of ground integration, as well as command and control center software to integrate a drone agnostic fleet for the operator of medical use cases.
Thank you.
Yeah, so my name is Patrick. I am the founder of AV. Thanks, by the way, for all being here at this time and not drinking beer downstairs yet. We appreciate that. We are an Amsterdam-based company, so it's a home game for us, and we develop electric vertical takeoff and landing drones for the emergency services. So the police flies with our drone that you might have seen with the blinking lights over there. We are particularly focusing on the part of autonomy because we believe that a fast response time is very important. So the quicker we can be at an incident to support the emergency services, the better. We support the police, fire departments, the search and rescue operators to gain a better situational awareness or for urgent deliveries on site. That's us with AV.
Thank you. My name is Mark Wiebes. I'm a commissioner in the Netherlands Police Force. And I'm part of a team that is responsible for innovation in Netherlands Police. And as you know, a policeman is never alone. So we have a stand here on the market where you can see a number of things that we do.
Thank you.
And my name is Simon Prent. I'm manager drones at ANWB. ANWB is the Dutch Mobility Club. And we also have our own helicopter emergency medical service. So we have our own medical drone service as well. It's called ANWB Medical Drones. And we have a goal to transport medical products from A to B between hospitals, such as blood samples, and medicine. And we fly with both Rigitech and AV drones, so it's nice to be here with you.
My name is Nicholas. I represent the FIA, Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile. If you've heard of us, you have probably watched Formula 1, Formula 2, rally racing, or Drive to Survive on Netflix. That's the sports side of things. The other side is mobility. We are the International Federation of Mobility Clubs. Like the ANWB, they are a member of the FIA. Just like that, there's 250 worldwide. 90 to 100 million members, depending on how you count, and a lot of those clubs are doing stuff with drones. We are here to support them whenever they want to do this. Historically, we closely work with police in a lot of countries, so we are supporting on that side. A lot of them are helicopter emergency medical service operators, like the ANWB. We are supporting on that side whenever it is they want to do something in the vertical mobility space.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody, for your intro.
I'm going to go sit over there if you
Okay,
have a
if
seat.
you want. Yeah, no problem.
They brought the chair up here.
that's
Might as
good.
well use it.
Very good. Okay, so I mean, it's late in the afternoon, second day. I guess it's difficult to keep the attention span of everybody for an hour. So I want to start the panel with one question that I always ask at the end of days when I'm moderating, which is the following: like, if there is one thing that you want the people from the audience here to remember going home, what is that one thing going to be? Obviously, we're talking about optimizing emergency response using drone operations, or try to be on topic, but this is your chance. Like, I want to know, what do you think is the key for doing that, for optimizing emergency responses? What do you think it's important to know, it's important to remember? And I want to ask this question to everyone as an opening, and then we're going to dig into the different aspects of it. But please, you can start.
Yeah. I think Adam ran away because he wants to hear
To be the last. He wants to be the last. He's smart. Yeah.
Sneaky,
smart guy.
Yes.
So basically, I'll double the bet. So the one thing, I'll make it two, right?
Go ahead.
So it's speed, and it's actually the scale, right? So we want to have a rapid deployment, mission critical response, and that's really what we should achieve through integrating the full chain. One message, and the second one is we need to do that at scale in order for us to be able to give a viable, economically reasonable price. Yeah? So those are the two things that we aim for, and we can talk a bit later how we can do amongst each other also. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that one of the important things to realize is that we're now getting to the moment that the technology development is there, and also actually something that I think most of the people should be very proud of, that from a regulatory point of view, a lot more is possible. And now we actually get to the most important part, and that is, what do the end users now actually need? And especially when we're talking about emergency response or urgent deliveries, too much we have been focusing on getting the aircraft to fly, to the regulations, to the sea and the compliance and everything there. But what are we going to use it for? How do we make sure that actually a scaled integration of a lot of these aircraft flying in different types do what they should do? Yeah, I hope that we can all think about that.
We will.
Okay, so it's all about security, of course, and I think we're entering the phase in technology where more autonomous flight is going to be possible. But that always should be within the lines of safety. So we need to think about drones that have an actual failover for the moment that they are out of control and they tend to fall down from the air. But I think technology is helping us so far in this phase that we can see more autonomous operating drones. We're experimenting with a drone out of the box, and also legally we are allowed to do so, but there's always in the back of our mind what happens if it fails. So this is the next question for me, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah, so here in Amsterdam Drone Week, we are talking a lot about technology and getting drones to fly and airspace management and all these things. But I think for this panel, most important message for me would be that we are not doing these things for fun or for a hobby, for the sake of flying drones, but we are doing this for our customers, in our case, the medical partners, that are really in trouble and really need the help of efficient and reliable logistics. I think that would be my main message for today.
For me, it's one message, and that is drones can save lives. We're always talking about, okay, it needs to be safe. Obviously, I'm not debating that. I don't want to kill anybody. But I would also like at the other side of the medal, which is how many lives can we save by deploying drones? Or how many lives are right now not saved because we are not yet there at a full integration at operation at scale. And I think we should also look at that and not only talk about the issues at hand.
Yeah, so you guys have said it all, so I don't need to say much more. No, but if there's one thing I could add to that is I find emergency response kind of a double challenge, because you got the first challenge of all the aviation stuff, so it needs to be safe and it needs to be reliable from an aviation standpoint. But then you've got the double challenge that you've actually got lives at stake. So if you don't manage to deliver a pizza to a house, it's not the end of the world. If emergency services are counting on this drone to deliver some, a blood pack to save a life, and the drone breaks down, then you're actually putting lives at risk. So it's kind of an extra level of reliability that we have to focus on and maybe not forget when we're developing our systems. They don't have to be the coolest and most high-tech, but they absolutely need to be reliable from both situations. Aviation safety, but also usability. You need to count that it's going to work.
Excellent. So I think I try to pick some points. I heard scale multiple times, so we're gonna expand on that. We heard about, it has to be safe, and you mentioned even extra safe or extra reliable because the mission is kind of important. And then there is the topic of how do you value the benefits that are provided against that risk that you are creating. And it's always this challenge. I think I was moderating yesterday a panel. I think you asked the question about how do I actually value the benefits. I think this is going to come back again, right? So let's go first on the challenges, and then we're going to look at the opportunities of this so that we end on a positive note, because we tend to end always on the challenges. I don't like that. So challenges on scale. Clearly, I think this is the challenge of the next few years. I guess we are all familiar with proof of concept. We have proven the concept now multiple times. Even at mini scale, I would say, we're not only doing one flight. We have people doing quite substantial amount of flights, but we're still not there at scaling. We're still not there where, the polices of the world just operate drones flawlessly and limitlessly. So what is preventing scale? What are the challenges that we need to overcome? We have a really good panel here because I have all the different perspectives, right? So let's try to have a good, 360 degrees views on what are the problems and the challenges and how you think we can overcome them. So we can start maybe from Adam, just the So, and then we go back. But yes, please.
Yeah, I think scale, it's an interesting question because it depends on the application as well. I think, and I'm not a police officer, so I don't know, but I think for certain applications like quick situational awareness, there's already off-the-shelf drones you can buy and you can fly in VLOS without needing special permissions and all that. So if you just want to quickly survey a scene, I think in many cases this is possible today and is being done in many cases. From the technological point of view, from the regulatory point of view, maybe there's some privacy challenges that are specific for police using drones that I don't, that's not my field. So, but I think in certain cases we already have the technology, we already have the regulatory framework. We see there's right now other applications that we deal with at Rigi, for example, which is long-range delivery beyond visual line of sight. This, of course, still is a bit of a challenge at scale. Airspace access comes back all the time, especially, and I think it's even more important in these kind of emergency situations because a SORA can take 12 months, to go through the process. If you want an emergency delivery, you got like 12 seconds to get it going. So having maybe simplified ways of getting access to airspace and even preferential access to airspace because you are an emergency operator, I think is key. And maybe there's some leeway here to not wait until entire giant UTM systems are set up to let emergency services operate, but to maybe start doing some preferential waivers for emergency services before we expand everything else. That could be one idea.
I quite agree with you there. We should develop a method of priority for emergency services.
Yeah.
So you might be aware that more and more drones will be available in airspace. So the more important it gets for priority services to have the priority. And we have to think about that. How can we develop a way like we have in cars on roads? We have lights and sound. And we need to have some things in place that will create free lanes for priority services doing this kind of work. So if we take it seriously, and rest assured we will, then we need to develop methods to do this in a safe way.
Yeah, and I think maybe some of that is already exists. HEMS operators, helicopter operators have priority
Okay.
on airspace for
That
their
is,
helicopters.
but that's a controlled airspace. There's people sitting in Schiphol who are controlling this airspace, and we are communicating from our heli, and they help us finding a safe route.
Yeah.
But if we are to fly unattended, we have to think about this, and this becomes important. So there's a difference between the house broker that is photographing his things for his advertisement, and he needs to be out of the way if we want to, and you want to go, and we need to find a way to do so.
And we have priority within drones and within manned aviation. We should also come up with priority when these two are there. So whenever there's now, let's say, a commercial sports plane or 4 or 5 people in the back, the drone should still go away now. But what if this is a police drone for a life-saving mission? Maybe then
different layers, different heights, things like that.
So maybe a reflection on the thinking that's now happening at the European level as to prioritization, right? So the key point is that you can physically allocate zones and let's say block airspace allocated, but that has a series of let's say impacts that can be quite capacity reducing.
Sure.
The other one is that you can have mission-related priority settings, that depending on your mission, you get actually the possibility to allocate a higher priority level. And so the more urgent your mission, the more serious. Leisure is clearly lower. Some missions have time, others have limited time, and others are, let's say, second-based requirements in order to save lives, right, Nicolas? So that's a key fundamental principle that we should avoid, to actually allocate zones and physical boundaries, because that's allocated, rigid, and capacity reducing. Whereas if you can link it to the mission type and give operators the bandwidth, because in their operational approvals they will be allowed to perform certain missions. For example, police can do X, Y, Z missions. You'll have extremely urgent ones, you'll have less urgent ones, and you are allocated these bands. So you can yourself decide what type of mission it is, and that will then be shot into the USSP services. But if
still,
you misuse
my point is we have to,
at the end, you can get audited, and then you have to explain. You know, you had 80% of your missions were highly urgent. Why was that, right? And if it's only 20%, then you get reprimanded. And if you continue to do so, you can lose your license. So that the priority is on execution, but there is let's say, responsibility also.
That's all fine, and I'd like to be transparent about it. There's no problem there. But we need to communicate in flight to other drone pilots to be out of the way, like we do in a police car on the road nowadays by flashing lights and sounds. So we need to think about the communication in flight.
And that's your priority number. So if you're in a certain band, the other ones with a lower prioritization number, you have your flashlight on automatically. So it's a relative flashlight that you have right there.
That will be one.
Have to deviate.
Okay.
Maybe.
Oh, Nicolas, yes.
Oh no, you can first. Okay, maybe just coming back to the problems scale. I am not quite sure whether there are problems with scale if the pressure is high enough. Looking outside of Europe, in Rwanda, we definitely have scaled operations there, right? And we actually see mortality rates going down due to emergency operations with drones. Why? Because the pressure was high and solutions were found for the airspace integration, for the safety issues and stuff like that. So there are solutions. I mean, the entire aerospace aviation system, it's not given from God, written on stone somewhere. It's something we humans invented and something we humans can change. So looking at Europe, I think the problem for scale here is that it's such a multifaceted problem that everybody is afraid to tinker with, especially with all the history that we have here. For example, that manned aviation always has priority right now, always has priority over drones. Should that be the case? Some African states decided no, it should not be like that, and made it so, because we can actually decide things if we want. So I think solving that multifaceted problem, that's the problem for scale here. And knowing at which level, in which area, which process to tinker with, that is the core of the problem.
Thank you. Please.
Yeah, I can add some on that. I agree mostly with what Nicholas said on scale. The point with the lack of scale is that to solve that problem is to have scale, to start somewhere, and that's what they did in Africa, and what we seem to not be able to do here. One other thing that we do see is that many different operators were kind of forced to be vertically integrated, so be their own operator with their own drone, with their own ANSP, with their own infrastructure. There are quite a lot of operators at the moment, and the African ones are definitely not an exception, that have their own system. So if you want to scale up, that's kind of an issue. So what we did also with you, Michael, is to also start DORAI, an initiative to work together on having more clear view on interoperable systems. And I think in the a little bit longer term, that could also help us to scale a bit more and to divide all the investments that we have made or are still going to be making and earn them back together.
Yeah, we're going to go back to that project specifically. Just want to hear from you, from AV perspective on scale, right? I mean, as a manufacturer, of course, you rely on the big numbers, right, to survive. So how do you see that? I mean, what you think is?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, especially the emergency response operations are particularly, when we talk about skill, have some interesting challenges. I mean, there's great things to do by building drones for emergency services. The impact we can make, there's different regulation for that. So we'll see that faster than all the other drone operations. But when we talk about skill, the type of organization is very different throughout Europe. Even in the Netherlands, the police is one central organization, but the fire department, firefighters are decentralized. That makes it very hard to scale. There's not a central point that can do the operational authorizations, to give you an example. The other thing is, and this is different in every other country within the EU. Now, what is even more challenging is that when EASA came out with their regulatory framework, they made this different set of rules for state operators. Mm-hmm. But all the nations within the EU could come up with their own policy, their own laws for that. And there's very little communication happening there. So what we see is that state operators, Germany has different type of state operators than the Netherlands, than Belgium. All have very different policies, different laws. Some police departments say, okay, we make it a segregated zone. Other countries say we'll do a NOTAM. Others say we have to use space. We're going to fully be compliant with EASA regulation, and that makes it very hard to scale up. So we need real tight communication there and policies. That's
a very interesting point. Coming back to you, is that the challenge of you want flexibility, but with flexibility comes kind of fragmentation, right? And exactly. The more you are flexible, the more you are fragmented. And when you don't have flexibility, then people complain it's too rigid, the EASA approach from the top, but at least it's standardized. And I know this goes one way or the other all the time, with performance-based regulation versus prescriptive regulation. And there seems to be never really an optimal balance. We're always chasing for it, right? Yeah. And here you see it quite clearly it's a very good example.
People will complain anyways.
Yeah, that's normal. It's okay.
I think here clearly what Patrick is putting forward is that actually more of Europe might be, in this case, an advantage, and we have to harmonize more between the markets, which means that our solutions that we have then can be also more effectively and efficiently be applied. Because one of the things we face, looking at scale, is that we have kind of a few bottlenecks in the system, right? And throughout the value chain, you have got the access to the airspace that was mentioned. You have also access to our use cases from the ground, to basically push boxes, the medical payloads through the system. In order to achieve scale, you have to have a fluent approach. So in the air, we've already aligned that actually the access is limited through to stumbling blocks, and there we have to make sure that we have a very modular setup where actually different solutions can be connected via open interfaces. Yeah? This is also in the advantage of a European industry, which are many players, and you have to define each and every layer clearly so that they can move and click inside each other in a Lego type of way. The second one is then on our customers. How do you get the flow physical inside our aviation value chain? And you have to automate that as well. So you have to standardize. And this is where Simon referred to the DORAI initiative. So we have started with 6 pan-European operators that all were very much highly interested in medical transport, and say, like, look, we can each ask to an AV, to Rigitech, whatever we want, and we have some deviating approaches. Every hospital you talk to has a different size of box, but let's put these things aside. Let's see whether we can align on requirements, and let's agree on that amongst operators so that we can provide to the manufacturers something that's specific, and they can focus their energy to develop something that has a few advantages, right? So you have more, let's say, certainty that what you develop is actually going to be useful because the operator is a bit more closer to the end customer than the manufacturer is. Secondly, you have not one happy operator, you have multiple, so you can leverage, and that's an important element of scaling up. And then the operator has a big advantage that the manufacturers see, oh, I have the same demand from different customers, so they will be able to focus their energy better, they will be faster, they'll have, in the end, better quality, so it's a gain. So this is a key element. So DORAI is, I think, a main achievement. In 2022, we started discussing. In mid-23, we had the first statement, containerization of the packaging. The sizing is a key example. But it was also in automation, it was in, let's say, functional requirements. And now, in March, we issued the second statement together, which is even more in detail and specific. And I would like to invite everyone to put in LinkedIn DORAI, so Drone Operator Requirements Area Initiative, DORAI. If you type it in, follow it. And operators, you will see, are also invited to join this initiative. So we can collectively create standards, and this will have scale
Very good.
impact.
Thank you very much. I mean, we kind of touch on the challenges now. We want to learn the opportunities, like why are we doing that? And I have to start with you, the police, the operator, right? Ultimately the one that needs the drone. I mean, we are doing all of these efforts, right, in optimizing, in standardizing, in creating drones for you to make an impact, right? For you to be able to change the way policing, for example, or firefighting for the better. Can you give us a perspective of how good it is, like, to have a drone? What kind of impact is it having on your operations?
Well, it's in our case, it's almost always about information, gathering more information about the situation. So this could be in fighting crimes. If you have a crime being committed somewhere, you want to go there and have very urgent and very quick the information that you might need to catch somebody red-handed. So that's one type of the things that we do. But if you talk about emergency services, it's about having an overview, if you will, on an accident or on a thing that is happening. Not so much on surveillance. Surveillance is far more plannable and might not qualify for drones to have cameras flying all around. It's not the kind of society that I promise to serve. But in emergency services, it's overview and information that we gather. So it might be video, it might be audio, it might be LiDAR or anything that will give us contextual information about the situation. And we need that fast because we can deploy people there after all. And you might imagine that in some cases you cannot deploy people there quick enough, but you want to have information to find out what you need to do in such a situation. Yeah. So information gathering, that's what we do. and not transporting people or not transporting goods like you might do. But in our case, it's smaller, just information, LiDAR, cameras, video, audio.
Thank you. Please.
What we've seen is that for the emergency service or any public services, this situational awareness actually contributes to a few things. So the faster you have the situational awareness, the faster you can operate. And what now usually happens is that the first information only really gets in when you have first responders on site. So if you are able to already get an eye in the sky, it could help out. It's the safety of the first responders themselves as well, if there are certain things that they maybe haven't seen yet. And of course, it's also the safety of people there that are at such an incident. So if you're able to use sensor systems, and it's not just cameras or thermal cameras, but if you're able to detect toxic gases or explosive gases, that could all be vital information for the first responders to help better.
And rest assured, we're not blind as long as there's not first responders on the scene. We have civilians telling us, giving us very valuable information as well.
Yeah.
But you're quite right. We need to have sniffers for all kinds of substances as well.
Yeah.
Excellent. I mean, policing is clear, situational awareness. I guess firefighting is the same. I mean, if we extend the topic of emergency response to something broader, you were mentioning, Adam, you don't do necessarily emergency response in these terms, but like drones that you manufacture are deployed also to save life in a slightly different way. So what other use cases do you see that are making an impact?
I think, interestingly, I mean, it depends what you consider emergency response. Indeed, there's emergency response. That can also just be fast response to stuff. We've heard a lot of interesting use cases like, what about machinery that is down and that needs a quick repair? When people are stuck in an elevator, that's not emergency response with firefighters or police, but that's technicians that need to be there within an hour with all the spare parts they need to fix that particular type of elevator. When telecommunications equipment is down, we were talking in Switzerland, there's one company that basically has to guarantee within an hour they can fix cell towers and everything. Otherwise, thousands of people lose connectivity. They have one center in the middle of the country that has all the spare parts that they need to fix these, and then they need trucks to get them out all over the country. So this kind of fast response for repair and fixing things that are broken, I think that's one of those hidden B2B industries that's surprisingly big.
Yeah. I have a reaction to that because there's a trade-off actually. If you improve on the transporting of these goods and the technicians, if you will, you might not have them dispersed over the country. So there's a trade-off. If you are better in transporting, then you would be more tempted to centralize it. And this is a choice. And this is not the choice you necessarily need to make. You can have redundant stock of this goods. So don't rely only on the transportation. Make the choice whether you want to have it redundant and more closer to the places where you might need it, or whether you centralize it. And it cannot all be paid by having priority everywhere.
Of course. And I think there's always a push and pull with all of this. We always see the more you centralize things to make them more kind of efficient economies of scale, and at the same time you want to point of contact to be in as many places as possible. So there's always optimization to be done there. And well, we're in logistics, so the logistics component of things defines also the kind of services that you can offer in different places and the response times that you can have.
Well, I guess it's every the option that matters. Like we're talking about optimizing the system, at least now you have the option to do one or the other. And then the question would be, what is the optimal? I'm sure the answer is going to be different depending on where you are and which system you're trying to optimize, but you provide the option to do that.
Exactly.
Maybe,
it's an extra tool that you have in your,
exactly.
in your toolbox, right?
Maybe from you, I mean, you have this global perspective, right, on use cases pretty much everywhere, and I'm sure your members or clubs and people, they're feeding back. So you might have a privileged view on where is impact being made by this operation, how we can optimize, right, and what optimizing means at global scale. So maybe can you give us a perspective from a million members organization? I kind of always like that.
Sure. So maybe right afterwards you can say something about the European market, but just for Europe, I think we need something must be done. Healthcare systems are under immense pressure. Hospitals are closing, so the choice towards centralization is being made. So we need to optimize the logistics system so we still have the same level of healthcare access that we have right now. There is no choice. There is only the choice, how do we solve this problem? I think drones are a very good part of that solution. Looking at other continents, for example, our member organizations in Latin America, Bogota in Colombia has the worst traffic on earth. It was, I think TomTom analyzed all their traffic data, and Bogota is the single worst town, city on earth with the single worst traffic. And part of that problem is accidents. So just because it is so crowded, multiple accidents are happening every hour. And the police is under stress. How do you respond to those accidents without having any information? If even your police cars get stuck in traffic. So our member organization in Colombia is now supporting the police there in first responder activities by driving there on motorcycles, which you can even drive on the sidewalk if you want. And then deploying drones there which relay information to a central information center, and then the police knows, okay, what do we need to do? Do we need to send a tow truck? Do we need to send multiple cars? Do we just need a single responder? So it's about having that information so you can react. Honorable mention, I mean, we're discussing here about drones. Honorable mention to Germany. Member organization in Germany, the ADW, has a contract with Volocopter for the transport of emergency medical personnel. Again, it's about optimizing the system. Why do you need a full helicopter to transport your doctor if a two-seater Volocopter might suffice? So, to be honest, we don't even know where all the optimization can take place because the ecosystem is not at a level where we can just go out there and say, somebody can have an idea. I see drones flying over my head all day. Why don't we use drones for that? We are not at that level of the ecosystem. And only by developing, by scaling some single applications, we develop the entire ecosystem to a level where real innovation can happen. Stuff that we here on the panel can't imagine right now just because we are limited by what we can do.
Yeah, thank you. And we were mentioning the European situation and the projects that we are doing in Europe. I mean, you mentioned, of course, the Dorai project, and we're also Sapphire Medi we wanted to talk about. I think that's also an impactful project that we are doing again to explore optimization possibilities. Can you spend a couple of minutes describing what is going on there?
Sure. Dorai is actually a drone operator initiative, right? That comes from our cells, bottom up, and that gives a feedback of, let's say, customer requirements towards the chain. The Sapphire Ready project is basically maybe a bit top down, where we say, like, look, all the researchers and industrial research, right? So it's applied research. What do they see possible to actually get all this complex, let's say, system, where Nicola referred to, evolving towards indeed joint operations of manned and unmanned aviation, like you mentioned, Patrick. And how can we make that happen, right? And that's Sapphire Ready, and we're actually also AV and Rigitech are also partners there, and we together again like to how to say make things evolve. And actually also in SAFE Ready we include the DORAI requirements. So actually we ask all the let's say drone manufacturers to actually follow those. So there is a clear a positive influence there and a clear acceptance to the several actors. So that's maybe in short what we do. SAFE Ready, the Ready stands for mission readiness. So this is exactly the topic we're addressing. So we want to make sure that when an order is placed by an emergency situation, that there is the system in all its phases or all its layers is mission ready, can immediately get into the air. So good is how to say something is charged on a drone. In parallel, the request for authorization, for flight authorization is provided, and this is processed in an automatic way, right? So, and that all these steps are not manual. So right now we have a lot of use cases, and we see people on all the demonstrators putting physically stuff in a drone, people typing flight authorizations, and all of that is actually blocking not only the speed, yeah, one issue, but also the throughput, the capacity, the scale. So that's exactly what SAFE Ready is focusing on, to get both airspace automated as well as ground automated.
Thank you, thank you. You wanted to add something, or?
Yeah, so what I think is interesting is that what we tend to do often is measure the time of the whole process. And a few years ago, when you would do that, you would indeed see that it takes way too long to be to be able to make a positive impact for operations for these first responders. So one of the reasons why we decided to do this docking station with the auto charge is to make sure that you become faster. We have integrated with an API with the dispatch centers of the emergency services in the Netherlands, so that if someone actually calls 112, the emergency number, and the location is known, that the location can automatically be transferred to a drone station to reach out. And this whole chain, until the moment you're actually there on the site, there's so many parts that were still manual or somewhat needed to be automated. And then you get to the point where it needs to be reliable, where it needs to actually save time, and where it also needs to be able to work in nearly any condition. And of course, this is a very new ecosystem still. A lot of maturing has been done over the years, but we're still not fully there yet.
Yeah, actually, this is a good point. I wanted to ask you this question because, moderate a lot of panels, and on the hospital side of things, this integration is more on the struggling side. It's more difficult. I wanted to ask you from a police perspective. Have you reached a point in which this workflow that we are describing, from the 111 call or 112 call all the way to the drone is on site, the entire workflow, do you think is now optimized, optimal? Is it good, or if not, where is not optimized?
It's not optimal yet, but it might never be, because our first focus is to have it robust. Because you can think about efficiency and think about the way you want things to go, and the way you want things to happen, but something else will happen. So we need to, first and foremost, we need to make a robust system to do so. And this consists of elements that are in itself robust and usable. And we're building those elements, like autonomous flying, drone out of a box, which we're starting to use now these days. And we will always be going in learning and optimizing the workflow, always knowing that we will, if we can't go along the left road, we have to take the right road. So this is always predominant in our way of working, to be robust in this sense, which is often not the same as efficient.
Yeah, it's always a trade-off, right? Because safety and robustness and performance, and yeah, absolutely. I mean,
maybe we could
please
also
go ahead.
The European standard on that. There is no standard, right, throughout Europe.
There
so you have
found we're working,
yes.
but
so
it's our organization, so we're working
Locally.
the way we do best, and we try to adjust it with neighboring countries. That's for sure.
And this is a major issue. So it's an example where there's no harmonization throughout Europe, and this
Not yet.
it's very expensive for the full solution to actually actively, deliver. And so there is a project Lifesaver where Airbus, together with SOS International, is putting together, let's say, a flow optimization that they want to actually now set up in Estonia, with the target to roll it out throughout Europe, to have, let's say, and that's a sister project. Lifesaver is a sister project from Safir Ready, because they want to see, to integrate, and so we hope Estonia is also one area where Safir Ready is having one of the 4 test areas. So we're hoping to be able also to procedurally and interface-wise be getting closer to a standard, European-wide.
Thank you. I think we've been given some extra time.
Extra
The
time.
watch just popped up, so it's very good. If there are questions from the audience, we have some more relaxed way of taking them. So I think we could see whether somebody has questions for our panelists. Please, I think we have 2 mics there, number 1, number 2.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wouter van Reelst, Netherlands Coast Guard. I want to raise the issue, the point of predictability. So emergency response may be very unpredictable in kind of where do you have to go with your drone? Do you have to follow a target? But in other cases, the use case for transporting medical supplies, it is really predictable. So I want to know from the operators, can predictability add to the safety case and can reduce the footprint, the amount of airspace, the claim on airspace that you have to reserve for emergency services, for hand services? Can you reduce the footprint in airspace and allow for other operations? And to the police force, to what extent are you willing to provide predictability, given that the case allows to do so?
Shall
You
I
first?
answer
Yes,
first?
please.
Yeah, sure. So you are completely right. I think in certain cases you can have more predictable processes, even with first responders or what we are doing with the medical use case. So you have unpredictability in time and in space. You have both. But we know beforehand where we are going to fly, so that makes the area actually pretty small and our safety case a little bit easier. But we still obviously don't have influence on the time. So we can influence a little bit and make it a little bit more predictable. But I think for you, things are a bit more difficult.
Well, the predictability is, in emergency services is not huge at all, as you might be aware, and even the Coast Guard would be have the same problem. It's not very predictable, and I don't think that there's a lot we can do to make it more predictable. Given the things that we would use emergency service for, if like I said, if you would use drones for surveillance, which I'm not in favor of, not predominantly, then you would be more predictable. You can close the airspace, or you can give a notice to people in the air that you will be flying there. If we have a crime scene outside that we want to investigate, we might predict it a little bit, but really in emergency services, it's going and as it comes. So I'd like to be more predictable, but then I would be there already.
Then it's not an emergency.
Well, on the other hand, you do know where, which areas incidents happen more often. So you could argue that maybe over the city of Amsterdam and Rotterdam, it's way more likely that emergency drone flights will happen than over a place further east or north. And then you could maybe say we're going to reserve some airspace.
If we really have places where we can predict that there's going to be more accidents, we talk to the city council and we try to fix those places.
Maybe that's always better.
I believe the underlying question was rather a question and a concern about capacity and freeing up capacity for other non-urgent missions. And then maybe predictability is maybe not the key driver of capacity limitations for the others, but it might be like how do you use the airspace for emergent flights, for example, right? So how much airspace do you actually reserve? And I heard like, okay, we block an airspace and that's maybe not at all necessary. And so we have bubbles that could be around the drone, which is actually the ingoing concept right now. So that you say like, depending on your speed and on your capabilities of your flight operation, that you only limit what you need. And that you actually also separate the vehicles accordingly in space and in time. And that, when you compare that with how much traffic we have on the streets, where actually everything is pushed in in lanes which we call streets, and then pedestrians are together with cars, and that's maybe one of the drivers of all these accidents, not only in Bogota, but also in the Netherlands. We have like 2 deaths per day, not talking about the wounded. I think you have the exact figures on that, but it must be in that area. So in the air, not only do we have many layers, but there is no streets, there's no playing kids that are very close to the operation. So actually there is capacity. We just have to be smart on how we use it, and also the prioritization scheme is there an important one. And we have a lot of, possibilities to cohabit all that volume out there.
And actually that's not new to us. And also on the ground, we have to be smart how to use the infrastructure to get somewhere. You might find a police car on a bicycle road, occasionally. So we have to be aware as well.
Very good. Any other question? Please, use number 1. Yeah.
Hello. I have a question. How do you guys think about covert operations for police? Because you don't want that an airspace is blocked for you, because then they see there's an airspace blocked for police. So how do you guys think about that?
If an operation is to be covered, it's covered. So I'm not going to talk about that.
Good answer.
Sorry.
But it's an interesting question in terms of when you talk about integration independently from the operation itself. But the integration typically requires, everybody to be conspicuous, right? Remote ID and all of this discussion. And then the problem of exemptions for the police and how do you manage those? Because the same drone could be doing a covert operation today, but another operation tomorrow, right? So you have to be able to kind of almost selectively switch on and off these different features. I guess it's an interesting challenge, independently from the secrecy of the operation itself.
Rest assured that everything we do is according to laws and regulations. Exactly. So the things we don't want to talk about, we still follow rules and regulations.
Yes.
I cannot say any more about it.
Yeah, I can maybe give, from our experience, we see this from the militaries actually, where they fly fighter jets and stuff, and sometimes super low, and the answer we typically get from them is, we're not going to tell you where we are, but we just need you to tell us where you are, and then it's on us to avoid you, basically. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, maybe that's one of the answers, the odd covert flight here and there. Well, if you know where everybody else is, you're not going to announce yourself. It's on you to make sure that you avoid whatever else is around there, and
Makes
so
sense.
be it. So,
thank you. Any other question? No. Okay, well, I think we are kind of spot on time, and just spend the last minute to thank you everybody for your contribution. I think it was an interesting panel, and thanks, of course, you to the audience. I know there are beers and more downstairs, and so thank you for staying with us until the end. And see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Bye bye.